so welcome to the BMP talk tour. I also want to give a shout out to other Illinois section members here, Pat Doherty, Village of Pingree Grove, Tim Galandri, the president of Illinois Section Water Reuse Association, and also Fox River Water Reclamation District and others from the same agency. Cindy Screwcrud, who we've worked with, I don't know how many years, but she's just been an absolute pleasure to work with because Cindy has the unique gift and talent of being able to talk to anyone, and instead of just complaining about a problem, she's like the matchmaker of the solution. So she is responsible. I believe that she has been involved with the negotiation of every single water reuse irrigation permit in the state. There's a bunch more that are anonymous because the permitting mechanism has been unclear, but we'll talk more about that. Okay, so start with why. So basically, I like to think of it as two big buckets. We've got a quality bucket and a quantity bucket. Generally speaking, in the Midwest, we are driven by the quality bucket. But that's not forever, right? Because we're right now on that aquifer that is depleting. So when I'm trying to make this case in Cook County, I just talk quality because I don't really understand quantity yet, but you guys understand both. And then a biggest struggle, and one that we're trying to tackle with the Illinois Section Water Reuse Association, is what to do when your water and wastewater are different revenue centers, which is the case in Chicago, in Cook County. Okay, so we can look to Boone County. I love getting to know what other counties are doing. They are doing an electromagnetic survey of their groundwater. This is revolutionary in the Midwest. They presented at a Water 360 conference sponsored by American Water Works Association Illinois chapter just a couple weeks ago. I raised my hand and I'm like, this is awesome. I love to see this. But what happens if somebody just across your county line moves in with a data center or something like that and draws your water down? What recourse do you have? The answer is none. So then I asked, well, what other state's doing a better job? And another person from the audience offered California's Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. I love sharing information this way. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can just look for whoever else is already adopted a solution, and then we can learn from their lessons learned to adopt that in a better way. Reuse is a really complex topic. It depends on the scale of your application, from centralized to distributed to your home, and it can be broken up by barrier, or by your applications. So we've got reuse irrigation, there's industrial reuse, there's non-potable reuse, and potable reuse. And there's different barriers for each of them. So I'm not sure. Public perception used to be a big barrier. I think once you have the need, the public perception starts to wake up to the need. And then also you can point to certain things that I don't know how publicly aware we are, but the International Space Station recycles their water every day. And so your coffee today is your coffee tomorrow. Now, they don't have industry up there, so we have that challenge. So like if you were to just scrap the whole civilization thing and start over, you would not have a mixing of your industry and your residential, your municipal waste. So you would actually have industry treating their own waste. Because it's kind of like, I like to give the analogy of your kids cleaning their room. Do you send it all down to the kitchen to get cleaned and then bring it back up? No, you ask them to clean their room where it is. Because that's the most efficient way to do it. So once we start commingling the industrial contaminants with the municipal wastewater, it makes everything harder to treat, and then you have contaminants of emerging concern, maybe things that you can't more readily detect, or they're super expensive to test for, or there's no regulations to test for it, etc. Whereas if you treat it at the source, then they know what's in that water because it's what they put there, and they don't really want to tell you because it's proprietary information, but the chemicals in that water could actually be useful for them to recover and reuse. So there's the International Space Station. Coffee today is your coffee tomorrow. I also wanted to let you know that there is a 57-year-old direct reuse project. It's not us, sorry. This is in the Namibia, in the continent of Africa. It was put online in 1968, the year of my birth. So I always remember, you know, how many years people have been reusing water, and this is in an arid area. These flows are required for fire flow and also for basic sanitation. So it cannot fail. They do not have the luxury of taking this offline. And they've been doing it since 1968. One big topic that we're talking about in Illinois American Waterworks Association right now is what is source augmentation. Because we are the only state that actually has a reuse prohibition in our source water code, we can't really say reuse in the state of Illinois. But we're not alone in that. Wisconsin doesn't have rules either, but yet they were able to take Waukesha off their groundwater and hook into Lake Michigan, or at Milwaukee, and then they treat it and they discharge it to the Root River, and then it goes back to Lake Michigan. So that is an example of source augmentation, but once you start picking apart the water cycle, you start realizing that every time we discharge out into the environment, be it irrigation or to a stream or discharging to groundwater, you're augmenting the source water to somebody. It may not be you, but it may be the guy downstream. So that's just an opportunity for public education and learning right now. If I have my way, we will have source augmentation 101 presentation at WaterCon next March, sponsored by Illinois Section American Waterworks Association. So other examples, back in the drought of 2014 to 2016, that drought impacted from Minnesota all the way down to Texas. So Texas was in a world of hurt, and they went from, it's indirect potable reuse right now, but they actually plugged their wastewater system. They built an advanced treatment system, plugged that into their advanced treatment, and then the advanced treatment went to their permitted drinking water plant, not because they needed to, but because that's the rules in the United States of America, that you have to have a permitted drinking water treatment plant for surface water. So, and then when the floods came, because of course that's the way we are right now, it was 2 years of drought and then it was floods. They just disconnected that and diverted the water to their Lake Arrowhead, which is their source water. So they are regularly augmenting their source water now. But the public relations moment was the mayor got on the local media and said, well, now you get to drink your beer twice. And the lost opportunity is that they didn't monitor bottled water sales. So we live and we learn. But nonetheless, the next drought, they have that pipe ready to just reconnect, go direct potable reuse. That was permitted on a case-by-case basis. Texas does not have a regular codified permitting pathway. They have a guideline document, and they handle it case by case. This is different than like Colorado and California, which Colorado took 5 people 5 years to write their code. And so we have these two extremes. Illinois doesn't want to do 5 years of 5 people, nor they don't need to right now, because they've got plenty of other states that are a go-by. But we can ask IEPA to permit on a case-by-case basis following the Texas guidelines, and then they can just see how they like that, right? And then consider making more rules after they get 5 applications a year. So, I mean, that's fun to think about. If we got 5 applications a year, that would prove need. So here's the Waukesha project, which I am calling source augmentation. If you go to a national conference, they would call this indirect potable reuse. And if you go to the US EPA website and look at the definition of indirect potable reuse, and then think about what's going on in Waukesha, they will call that indirect potable reuse. You'll see the difference, you'll see the similarities. But if you go to the guy who wrote the permit at Wisconsin, he will not call it reuse. And that is because they do not have the rules. So we can talk about this as return, because we do have rules from the Great Lakes Compact that you must return the water to the Great Lakes. So this is officially a return project. You can see a lot of these things are language. A lot of them are business decisions. None of this is technical. So, and thank you very much for previewing a talk that I'm giving at WEF I'm going to be on a panel, and I have to cover drivers' opportunities and Illinois progress in 2 minutes. And so, And so this is like the long version, and then I'm going to ask you guys what you heard on these topics at the end so that I can continue to fine tone. So we all work together, right? So here's the quality drivers. I'm going to throw PFAS into the mix because that is a pickle. It may be a little bit on the back burner due to the current administration, but you know that we do have a risk assessment right now for drinking water that is just under review, right? It went for public comment. I think it's stalled at that moment. But we also have the nutrients. So here's the nutrient dashboard from IEPA, and we also have the PFAS dashboard from IEPA. So the folks at the state will say, well, PFAS is the reason to not do reuse. But if you go to national conferences and you talk to the person who wrote the guidance document for Texas, she will say something like, the direct potable reuse systems, those processes will be more resilient and able to handle removal of PFAS than traditional. I think that says that the processes can do both. But I think her way is the better way to say it. My way is just shorter and probably more direct, right? We do have the nutrient reduction strategies that I'm sure you're all aware of, perhaps painfully aware of, that these decreasing nutrient concentrations are begetting questions of, do we upgrade our treatment plant or is there some other option? And the irrigation permits are where this has come in, because if you take your discharge and field apply it, land apply it, that now you perhaps could avoid some costs. This is an avoided cost, right? So this is a balancing act, except that you have to know that that's an option, because right now in our code, it says 200-foot setback for treated effluent irrigation. And there is pretty much no place in civilized Illinois where there's 200 feet setback around a wastewater treatment plant. So that's kind of like a deal stopper right there. And then you can do a 25-foot setback if you have a 40-inch fence. And the third option is, if it's a golf course, you can do whatever you want, as long as it's at night. All right, so here's the drivers. This summarizes what Scott was mentioning. So this is a publication from the Illinois State Water Survey from 2017. And I like to compare this. Is that fuzzy? I don't know if I should. Can you guys see it? Maybe that's a little better. So here's the aquifer that's drawing down, and I just like to compare the overlapping. So the middle one is all those pipelines extending from Lake Michigan water. So right now, we have two kind of soft policies at IEPA. One is interpretation of the 10 state standards, use the best available source. So they are saying, as they decided the permit for Joliet, that only Lake Michigan is the best available source, not accommodating any kind of quality or economics of extending the pipeline. Now, if you extend a pipeline, the longer it goes, you've got this kind of linear-ish curve of like cost increasing with distance. But if you do reuse, that's a localized treatment and that is a flat cost. So at some point, those cost curves are going to intersect, and it is going to be cheaper for you to build a reuse treatment plant on site than extend water from City of Chicago or some other West Shore producer. Then the right one, stage right, is where we have the new chapter of Illinois Section Water Reuse Association are the brown dots. Perhaps I should have picked a better color, right? But a bunch of those are Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, which has 7 plants. And the blue ones are irrigation, recycled water irrigation applications. And I'm learning about new ones all the time. And one specific one that is not irrigation, it's going to be industrial, is you might be aware that there was a bill passed and just signed last week, I think. Maybe it was more than a week ago. Pritzker signed a bill allowing Bloomington Normal to sell within a 50-foot mile radius. And I have a slide on that. So So we'll talk about that again in just a moment. So the opportunities are basically irrigation to share your nutrients, which are a valued resource with folks that want to have turf grass. And the other opportunities are data centers. So we have in Chicago, right on the shores of Lake Michigan, proposed the largest quantum computing site in the world, I think it is. And it's this big collaboration, and I think if it's worked right, this could be an opportunity for transparency because the government is involved, that's our tax dollars. We should have a little bit of say as to how that is operated. There was an article in the Tribune a couple days ago that said that Illinois was the 4th largest data center state. And I don't know if that is, I guess that's just numbers because they don't really know how much water people are pulling because it's all proprietary. Why that should be is another question. So that's interesting that more information is needed. So this quantum facility, best available information is that they still want to break ground this year, but as of June, they hadn't transferred the property yet. They do want to use drinking water for phase 1 and a total flow of 150 million gallons, but I assume that that's like fully built out. The other thing in the Tribune, and I would love to fact check this one, they said 97% of all data centers use drinking water for cooling. That blows my mind. And so we are reaching out to the author of that article in the Tribune to try to figure out if that's true. And as I mentioned that, I need to introduce the engine behind me, which is Kelsey Hall, my policy director of Metropolitan Water Reclamation District.
Is that 150 MGD, is that correct?
150 MGD in full build out. They're going to use, they're pretty much committed to using drinking water for cooling in phase 1, and I don't know what the flow proposed for phase 1 is. They just want to, their timeline is their biggest crunch right now. So whatever they can do to get stuff going ASAP. But I am trying to get vendors for air-cooled systems that could just be it's like an offering. Like, hey, do you want to consider this? And then it would be another challenge is to try to get in the same room to talk to them. Yeah. I don't have their phone number. So in 2021, after thinking about all of this, I worked on a project for state of California to determine if direct potable reuse was feasible. Yes, the answer is yes. I was one of 33 projects, not by myself. I came off of that with language because I had to review other state codes, and then I come across this prohibition on water reuse. What is that? And then I participated in the public comment for Joliet, where I heard that they were IEPA disallowed them from considering the Des Plaines River because, one, it wasn't the best available source because they considered the Des Plaines to be equivalent to combined sewer overflow from City of Chicago, and two, our no potable reuse prohibition in our source water code. Those were the two reasons that they gave. And I was kind of shocked. So I then worked with a then commissioner of Metropolitan Water Reclamation District to brew beer to show that we could do it, because that's what they were doing at WEF back then. At the Innovation Forum, they would have effluent beers from around the country, and this guy, Mark Jockers from Portland, Oregon, was the leader of all of us, and every year we would have like 6 beers. So I thought, well, in 2019, we need a Chicago beer. So we did that. We brought cases. I don't really know how. I mean, we did make it to the Water Environment Technology magazine at like a little blurb at the bottom, but you know, we're water nerds, so it's not big news. The Sun-Times did cover us providing reuse beer for the 2019 World Water Day hosted by Current, but you know, that's the end of that traction. Need more. So in my vision, I thought we needed to revise 10 state standards, then revise that code to repeal the prohibition, and then we had to do source water studies. That's what I thought back in 2019. So, and in this time, I thought that this was going to take us 20 years. So that was 4 years ago. Look at the progress that we have now. So we are far exceeding my expectations, but it has not been the linear path that I thought we were on. So, we've had a few legislative pieces. So in 2011, North Shore Sanitation District proposed legislation to our General Assembly, and it passed and was signed by Governor Pat Quinn to allow them to sell their treated wastewater effluent to, I guess, one golf course in particular, but this was supposed to allow them to sell more. That opportunity, that market never materialized because of competition with water revenue for their drinking water provider, Highland Park. Then in 2019, we did the beer, and through no help from me, 10 state standards just decided to include in their forward policy statements on both reuse and PFAS removal. And I just said thank you in 2022. But then additionally, I got some advice on how to participate in public comment for the 2022 state water plan, and they took my advice and said had a recommendation in table 13.2 to make rules for water reuse, and they regretted that ever since. Just kidding. Then in 2023, we formed the focus group for the Mississippi River Basin. The purpose is trying to collect more states together that might have like issues so that we can get some critical mass of experts from across the country and our major professional water organizations. So that's American Water Works Association, Water Environment Federation, and Water Reuse Association. In 2024, we passed a bill. The original language was shall repeal the prohibition and authorize rulemaking. IEPA was the only one that spoke against it. And so that language got changed to may repeal the prohibition and authorize rulemaking. It actually doesn't really matter because they could just they don't need authority to repeal the prohibition. They do need authority to authorization to make rules. So they have that now. We've kind of checked that box. And then in the meantime, the focus group of the Mississippi River Basin filed an action item with the Water Reuse Action Plan at the federal level that's hosted through US EPA. And we are almost done with the report for that. The economics have been a little, that's always the most challenging thing. So we are breaking that piece out into a research project. And it looks like Water Research Foundation is going to help us out with that. That's kind of pie in the sky, so that's off in our future stuff to do. Then just last month, Bloomington Normal sought legislation that was passed at the General Assembly and signed into law by Pritzker to allow them to sell water within 50 miles. So that's where we are right now. Because we do not have clear rules and a clear implementation pathway to reuse in the state, people are one-offing these projects through legislation. So I think we just have to ask ourselves if that's what we want. Do we really want to have every single municipality contact their state rep and senator and ask for a bill to be passed for your sanitation district to be able to sell their effluent? Or we could do something just a little bit more efficient. So now we have, in 2025, March, we launched the Illinois section of the Water Reuse Association. And this is great because they are not 501c3. They have a greater ability to lobby, and we have done some of that. We support a tax credit for water reuse that would help the data centers come to reuse water. That's a 30% tax credit, and it would also help public-private partnerships, a number of things. It didn't get brought into the current budget, and we don't really have hope that there's going to be any kind of reconciliation. So we're trying to get a grip on when's the next opportunity, when is the next budget going to be considered. But that's an opportunity for people to contact their state reps and senators and ask for them to consider that bill, and then it has to be bipartisan. So no bill on water reuse can be labeled Republican or Democrat. So we have to have one-on-one coming together at the same time to co-sponsor, because that's just the climate that we're in. It's never about the technology. So now that we've got that going on, we're in this do loop, is how I see it. We need communications, we need pilot studies, and those two go together because we need fact-based communication, and others that are coming before us are doing it this way. So City of Franklin, Tennessee has participated with us with the Mississippi River Basin document. And that's what they are doing. They're doing actually pilots first to inform their communications plan. Other states have done it the opposite. They do communications and then pilots. I think the more you can knit things together is always better. And then somehow find a way to support the repeal of that prohibition, be through a petition to the Illinois Pollution Control Board, of which I will have a bake sale at all future events to hire the attorney. It's going to cost $20,000 for the attorney, so if you see me at a bake sale booth at any of the professional water organization things, come by and buy a piece of, banana bread or something. All right, and so here's just an example of the rules. I am blathering on. We're 40 minutes in already, so I'll just leave you with, here we are. Here's straight from our code. We've got a 200-foot setback and 25 setback if it's fenced, no setback if nighttime irrigation on a golf course, and there's our prohibition. And then if you notice, let's just focus on irrigation for today because that's the low-hanging fruit, and that's how we're gonna have the advantage for nutrients. If you look at the other states that have rules in the 12 states of the eastern Mississippi River Basin, they're all quality-based. We're the only ones that have a flat 200-foot setback, regardless of what water quality. Now, I'll go back to the International Space Station. You can treat it to potable standards. And even on the CDC website, at least it was last month, there was a statement that said, all water can be treated to potable standards, no matter how dirty. So you imagine a world where you could consider water based on quality. So the spare irrigation permits, as you know, are all handled by Getty Ilma. She handles them on a case-by-case basis. You have to know that that's possible. But they also have this soft internal policy in IEPA that if you they consider land application, land is equal to treatment, and tertiary treatment, or which is nutrient removal, plus land application is waters of the state, so no permit is required. That's kind of awesome information to know where they're coming from. And this, I think, is kind of the thread in the sweater of how to talk to IEPA to, we need to forge a collaboration. Right? So we need to work together in a collaborative way to make these rules. And I know that that is hard. And the biggest challenge is for our state government to feel threatened by the regulated people. So we have to find, it's all how you say it, right? Okay, so I guess that there is the actual code. So here is the public reuse rulemaking offending sentence. No community water supply may use recycled sewage treatment plant effluent on a routine basis. It's such a small sentence, right? It really shouldn't be that hard to just scrub that out. And I will say that when I started this at the public comment of Joliet, there were additional 2 sentences. This used to be 231C. There was A and B, which also included coliforms and total suspended solids. And they removed those quality statements, but they left the no recycling of treated effluent, which I found puzzling again, because anyway, yeah. Quality, right? It's all about quality. So I'm gonna just run over who's doing irrigation that's willing to go public. So you guys, and I will just go over this super quickly because you'll hear more from the Huntley folks on this. And they irrigate the Del Webb Sun City golf course, which is the subject of our tour. Pingree Grove has also an application permit. So when you see the little bar, that actually went through IEPA and they got permitted to do that. The permitting conditions lie in the operating permit, and then if they are able to not discharge at all, they don't have an MPDS permit. That's hard to do in the winter. So most of these permits are for land application through the growing season. So here is Pat receiving award from the Illinois Section Water Reuse Association at the conference in March. And this is amazing PR that we are just gonna you know, sing the praises, look here, state government, look at what this utility is doing. And here is a map of, Pat could so cover this better than I can. So Pat's in the front row if you want to talk to him about it. So, but one question for you, is there a golf course involved?
Yes.
There is.
The upper part of the map, the green, it's a 3-hole line.
Okay.
3 holes, but 3 different things on the 3 holes.
So what is very interesting about the Pinky Grove system is that it is an exception to the rule. It is irrigation of parkways. So there is a golf course, but it's not the bulk of the project. So IEPA had to take a chance at a variance. It's not the 200-foot setback, it's not the 25-foot setback with a fence, and it's not a golf course. But correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, because I've heard you say it a couple times in public, that at night, the people along that parkway will turn the spigots to the residential backyards because they want green grass too, and your staff comes in the morning and turns it back to the parkway and has to politely explain to the residents why that's illegal in the state of Illinois.
Yes.
So here's a picture of, so it's not that much of a difference, but here's the beautiful parkway, and that's the unirrigated piece, just for comparison.
Irrigate near the schools. So the school's on the other side of the pass, so that had to be pulled up.
Oh, okay, yeah, well, yeah. I love consequences. Okay, so Cortland is another one. They have a permit to irrigate, and this circle here is all, just to let you know, reinforce learning for reuse. Wasco is another one. They have no permit. It's a 0.3 MGD capacity plant, so they do 100% discharge. North Shore Sanitation District, they're the ones that passed legislation back in 2011, but then found no additional folks to sell their water to, purely because of competition for water revenue. Not technology, business decision. There's some anonymous ones too that I can give you stats on, but maybe they don't really want to go public because they don't want to incur more regulation. So here is the Bloomington normal rule that just passed. It allows the Water Reclamation District to sell treated wastewater effluent to receive waste within 50 miles. And I'm not saying anything because this is where I'd love to have facts, but I don't. But I'm just showing you where the plant is, and oh my, what is that? I'll just let you guys read. So I can't confirm that that's where the water's going, but I highly suspect that that is why they passed this legislation. And good for them too, because they have sustainable development goals. So from an industrial standpoint, now this is a different application. We've been talking about irrigation up until now. This is industrial. Those big industrial companies that have sustainable development goals are more likely to reuse water than those without. So like for instance, the Ford company in Calumet sought to use the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District Stickney plant for reuse, and City of Chicago said, no way are we losing that big customer, and the mayor walked right down and cut their rates, so to kill the reuse deal. And this is a company that has built a sustainability center on the south side and is very public about their sustainable development goals. So again, this is a business thing. It is how you structure your rates, how you keep the water utility whole so that they can maintain their infrastructure, because nobody wants to be, broke and not be able to, especially in the days of lead service lines and all that. Nobody wants to be the next Flint. So our utilities must remain well-funded. So here's another case study on the irrigation side. Now, Nevada as a whole passed a law. Now, they're much different. This is the very arid state. They passed a rule, no Colorado River water, no water derived from Colorado River water may be used on non-functional turf grass. So, and Kelsey and I found out yesterday that includes recycled water. If that water molecule came from the Colorado River water, you may not use that on non-functional turf grass except for a single family home. So additionally, and kind of separately, the city of Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Valley Water Authority has instituted a rate schedule, and so I would guess that this is for water not from the Colorado River water, so groundwater, other sources. They have increased their rates, so in 2031, their recycled water will be the same rate as their drinking water. I personally think that that's genius, and that is quality-based pricing. But that's not even saying that the irrigation water is the same quality as potable. But if we could redo everything, wouldn't quality-based pricing make sense? So we have issues, right? How do we figure all this out? And this is why we need kind of this Illinois chapter of the Water Reuse Association as kind of like this, for lack of a better word, cover organization, because individual utilities are kind of maybe not so ready to go and talk to IEPA and take a more negotiating stance. But if we have a professional organization to represent us all, then maybe we get farther, and also come in a way that's conciliatory. As Cindy has taught me. She's my role model on working together. So we have, how do you monetize source water? So, and I'm sure that you guys probably know this better than I do. I'm starting to talk to people that work in the economic side, rates. So if you have water that you're directly providing to your drinking water, that seems pretty simple to me to establish a rate to make the water cycle whole. But when you are discharging it out into the environment at a super high quality or some kind of a reservoir, then how do you recover the cost of, how do you set the rates appropriately so that they're covering the cost of that separate recycled system? How do you pay for the recycled system? That's one thing. So, and then additionally, we've got PFAS removal. Well, the PFAS removal recommendations right now, the recommended treatments are reverse osmosis, nanofiltration, granular activated carbon, an anion exchange, and a specialty sorbent called Fluorosorb. If you take the granular activated carbon, that is very similar to one of the direct potable reuse trains. So if we could just jump to the future right now, it seems to me that the answers are simpler. But of course we cannot do that. We have to start from where we are. But I think what the other states and areas have already been through is very instructive for us, that we don't perhaps fall in the same potholes that they did. So, and I'm referring to a third pipe. So a third pipe from your wastewater treatment plant makes sense if you're in an industrial park, if you're just, or you're bordering properties. But I would advise on caution to think of it as the only solution. I think it is a solution on a buffet of options of reuse. So there's a great document out called Distributed Systems from Water Environment Federation, and it highlights some projects, including what New York is doing. Now, New York doesn't have the same problems as Chicago because they have water and wastewater in the same revenue center, but they're doing distributed systems along the waterfronts. So along the Brooklyn waterfront, the Domino Sugar Redevelopment Project is an amazing step forward. It makes space, it just takes all those acres off their combined sewer system, thus decreasing combined sewer overflows. Well, there's another problem that we're dealing with, right? So maybe not everybody, maybe not in this area, but there are other solutions, and that is not a big pipe back to a wastewater treatment facility. It is, you could consider it on-site reuse, but it is a developed area. So it's kind of like a big 5-building development. So from a conference standpoint, when you hear distributed, I think that kind of means on-site. On-site is like a subsection of distributed systems. Who's going to WEF next week? Yeah, so just, yeah. The on-site conversation is really interesting, but I'm actually finding the distributed conversations to be more interesting. And also because they have answers to finance. So, kind of getting towards the conclusion, imagine a clear implementation pathway for reuse. What kinds of things could we solve with that? Nutrient reduction, or nutrient loss reduction to meet statewide goals, combined sewer overflow reduction. We could consider a more environmentally more sustainable approach for our data centers. And who wants to say no to economic development? So I think that's never going to happen. So we better just figure out how to get on the bus, or we're going to get left behind. And quality-based pricing, so reliable funding that would provide reliable funding for your capital improvements. So what's in it for your utility? We like to talk about this, and this is a graphic from Kelsey talking about challenges and benefits. So, and we need to start thinking about this as the costs that we could avoid and the benefits that we could share. The pathway to reuse, I think we need to develop implementation pathway. So that is not necessarily a permitting pathway. It's not necessarily codified rules. We could start just with a clear implementation pathway. And this is what Ohio is doing. So Ohio is working with their Ohio chapter of the Water Reuse Association with 6 different committees of international consultants. I'm not just a little jealous. And they are making a guidance document that will be posted on the governor's website. So whoever industry wants to come to Ohio, it is on the governor's webpage of how to comply. So that decreases their business risk and makes Ohio a more attractive place to bring your business. We do need pilot studies to inform fact-based communication, and we do need to repeal a prohibition one way or another. One option for that is a petition to the Illinois Pollution Control Board that could be led by the Water Reuse Association Illinois chapter. But, you know, me and Sharon Waller could also put that petition in too. So, with my bake sale. And then the Illinois state has already been provided rulemaking authority. Oh, let me go back. So join us at the Illinois section in order to have a seat at the table. We'd love to have your participation, just even in guiding how to think about these data centers coming in. I just volunteered for a project advisory committee overseeing a data center project for the Water Research Foundation. So I'll be pulling all that information back to the chapter. It is a population-based dues. This is a utility-centric organization. So we don't really have bylaws yet, so I don't really know how the voting goes, whether it's by member or by utility, or, you know, those of us who are consultants, do we even get a vote? I don't know. We'll figure that one out. But as utility members, you know, you guys definitely, we want to hear your voice and represent you. And I think that you guys are, remind me, are you over 50,000 customers?
We're under.
Under, okay, so that'd be $1,500. I can do that on a bake sale for you. I could do $2,000 on a bake sale. So here's the invitation to join. It was shared on social media. Come on. Oh, there we are. Because we are very grassroots. So does your utility face source water scarcity? Are forever chemicals getting you down? PFAS, nutrient management, and groundwater depletion are all hot button reasons to establish a new water reuse association section in Illinois.
We have 5 deep wells currently pumping around 3 mil daily. We're building a 6th that should be done this spring, so we're really excited about that. That's been in the works for a few years. That well is going to be a deep sandstone aquifer that will be pumping around 1,000 GPM. It's about 1,200 feet deep and 1,000 feet for the bowl and motor. The 5 water treatment plants that we have, they're the cation exchange, made up of resin, and we do have a forced draft aeration on the one that you guys will be seeing today that's right down here. This is a model that's going to be for well 11 also, so 11 will be a lot like what you'll see today. Ironton Galesville Aquifer, I think we had mentioned that earlier, that is a popular aquifer for this area, so we want to make sure that the reuse is taken very seriously in the next couple of decades. Let's see, what else do we got here? So the water treatment plant schematic, we have the deep well. I know it's a little bit blurry to see. It's pretty straightforward, and this also resembles the new well. It goes through a detention tank, or aerator, first, and then a detention tank, high service pumps through the cation exchange units, into a brine region, system. For us, we really look and take into consideration metering, very important. We had a water loss of 7% last year. We thought that was a pretty good achievement considering the last few years. So we've done a lot with meters. We really want to get that water loss down, and that goes into what we're talking about today too for the reuse. And then we also do have 5 towers. I forgot to mention that. And if you guys would like to see a tower, we can definitely visit there too today. Any questions on kind of how this rolls out here? 3.317 million gallons is what we can store. The 5 elevated water storage tanks. We do have 2 detention tanks at 2 of the wells. Those are pre-chlorinated detention tanks before it goes through the high service pumps. More than 190 miles. So Huntley is growing rapidly. We have about 5 subdivisions right now being developed. So that's another reason for well 13, just to keep up with the demand. A SCADA system that, most places have. I'll hand it over to Adrian for the wastewater. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, we have 2 wastewater plants, both do a little over 1 million gallons a day. We have 13 lift stations that are spread out all over town. And I'll talk more on the tour if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One cool thing, we got rid of a lift station a couple years ago. We diverted it to another one. So that's unheard of to get rid of a lift station after it's online. So that was I was really happy about that. A little bit less maintenance and stuff, but yeah, I'll talk more on the tour though. That's all right.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, okay. I didn't know I was doing this. Okay. So this is our east plant. It's the older plant, but fairly new because it's been upgraded. So a lot of the old RBCs and trickling filters have been removed and added new technology, oxidation ditches. We have 3 ditches there, 4 clarifiers, a couple aerobic digesters. We have a belt filter press. Both of our plants are pretty much the same, just like the water plants are. They're pretty much designed the same. Yeah. What do you got to hit? What do you got to hit? Oh, I'm sorry. So we're required to provide 34% of our effluent from April 1st. Is that right? May 1st to November 1st. Sorry about that. And we send 100%, and they use it all. So we don't discharge for those 6 months or 7 months or whatever. And Sharon, she was talking about the drought in 14. I was telling her earlier that we had the greenest golf course in the area. 'Cause I play a lot of golf, and most golf courses are just tore up, So, yeah.
Those are supplements.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that's the questions.
Cool. Thank you.